All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to today's webinar, Managing Employee Performance in a Manufacturing Environment. I'm Andrea Terrell, Marketing Director at HNI, and this webinar is part of our HNI University series where our mission is to drive change through education. A couple of housekeeping things before we dive in. The slide deck will be posted on hni.com. That's one of the first questions that we always get is whether we'll send out the slides, and we will be sending those to you by email. We'll be doing Q&A at the end, but also please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing those into your chat window and GoToMeeting. We're on Twitter, so you can also tweet your questions to us using the handle @HNIRisk or the hashtag HNIU to win some HNI swag. Quick word of thank you to our sponsors. These companies that you see on the screen are the reason that we're able to put on this workshop and webinar series free of charge. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Chad Zasadik. Chad has been with HNI for almost 19 years and is the president of our Wisconsin location. He has also, he's a past chairman of the Wisconsin Safety Council and currently sits on the WMC, the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce Foundation's board.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're really excited to be able to present this webinar today, and we're hoping that we can generate some discussion and some interest in this idea of performance management at a different level and looking at it from a different perspective. In the past, people have approached performance management really as something that has to be scientific or has to be numbers driven, and in some ways it does, but we're going to explore a lot of different kind of ideas and territories today. But just so you all know, I've been involved and inside of about over 1,000 companies. I've trained groups from 2 to 2,000 and listened to hundreds of leaders and supervisors and employees and talked to them about their issues and realized that they're all very, very different. And what's missing, in my opinion, is focus, listening, and action in the workplace. And really, I'm going to share some of my experiences with you today. And first, I want to start off with a story. And this story is about a pheasant who was standing in the field chatting to a bull. And the pheasant said, "I'd love to be able to get to the top of that yonder tree, and but I haven't got any energy." "And well, why don't you nibble on some of my droppings?" replied the bull. "They're packed with nutrients." The pheasant pecked at a lump of dung and pecked away and found it actually gave him enough strength to reach the branch of the first tree. The next day, after eating some more dung, he reached the second branch, and so on. Finally, after the fourth night, there he was, proudly perched at the top of the tree. Suddenly, the farmer spotted him, dashed into his farmhouse, emerged with his shotgun, and shot the pheasant right out of the tree. So there's a moral to this story, and that is, bullshit might get you to the top, but it won't keep you there. So these are things that we have to really understand, and we have to move forward with where we're headed, not to BS things, and to get to the point where we're providing true value. So a quick case study before I get started, and this is going back to my background. I did my original internship at Case Manufacturing, so the tractor people, going back about 27 years ago. And my internship was a crazy introduction to an operation and an organization that was production focused. They were, I mean, ahead of their time, charts, graphs, training, 100% production focused, but so much was missing, and I learned so much from them. They produced a ton of tractors, but they also had a multi-million-dollar spend in injuries. They had quality issues, recalls, returns, dissatisfied customers. In fact, multiple generation buyers had turned away from them and went to other products. They were in trouble. But I thought there had to be a better way. There has to be a better way to use this example, and today I take this platform with me everywhere I go. What I realized is you have to see the whole picture. If you only see part of the picture, your results will be half-baked. So you have to get the whole story in your operations to optimize performance, not just one facet. So let's dive in. So what are our goals today? I'm not going to read to you. I think that's doing you a disservice. But I think for the most part, what we want to do is really talk a lot about behaviors and discuss ways that we can improve employee performance organizational performance through better behaviors. And so when I look at organizations and the ones I work with on a daily basis, really that gets to the core of where we need to go with them, is to drive the behaviors, because ultimately if we don't have the proper behaviors, we're wasting our time. So we're going to go through some tips, and we're going to talk about the impact of how performance reviews matter or don't matter, and take a look at some of these unwanted behaviors and things we can do to change, and then take a look at some questions at the end. So what if? And I love this term. To ask a new leader, a new organization, somebody within the firm that's just so interested in making an improvement, and when you ask them what if, their eyes light up. And it's so cool to me to see that people that are energized want to be around other energized people. They want to propel productivity, and they want to work with people that are like them. They get frustrated by people that are not like them, people that kind of walk slow, or people that kind of are disinterested or have a different agenda. That breeds culture issues and something that has to be addressed within an organization, or it's certainly headed down the wrong path. So let's look at some leading indicators, and I think these are my personal leading indicators for performance problems, and you could list many of you with your vast experience, many others. But not having a plan on where you're headed in an organization, I see this a lot when I'm out there. Hey, I asked somebody, what's your 3-year plan? What? We don't have one. Well, if you don't plan and you don't figure out where you're going, you're going to have a real hard time getting there. You know, whether it's you're going to double in 3 years or 5 years or something like that as an organization, that's a start. That gives you a way to plan and to get there. Or you're going to be the employer of choice in 5 years. Well, you're going to have to do a bunch of things to get yourself there, and you better figure out what those things are. The other thing we're seeing out there, again, as leading indicators, if you see your talent pool going down, you see the availability of qualified candidates, it's a leading indicator of something coming down the pipe that may not be so good. Same thing with skills gap and the rest that you see on the screen. If you're having a lot of customer complaints about quality issues or returns and things of that nature, again, we need to address these things immediately because they are leading indicators. So that's looking out the windshield as to what's headed our way in your organization, something you should be doing. You should not be driving down the road looking out the rearview mirror, because if you look at things through the rearview mirror, you're not seeing the big picture and what you really should be focused on. You're looking at the past. So some of the past things that you might consider to be lagging indicators and things you should still be concerned about because they affect the profitability and longevity of business, but product returns, lost business, unfavorable social scores. If you guys have ratings or rankings within your organization on social sites, something that you know can be real or not, but in the public's eye, a ranking is real. And sometimes we can dispute that and say that's not true, but sometimes that's reality for people that see it. Also, a damaged brand. If your brand becomes damaged due to an issue, something that an employee has done, well, definitely going to affect performance and the profitability of the business. So lagging indicators. So what do we need to do? We need to look at the wicked problems. And what we refer to with wicked problems are the kind of problems that you just can't write a check for. Those are huge problems. These are problems you should be strategizing with your management team right now in your organization to determine what's wicked for us. What are they? And in my mind, there are two things that can cause your organization to go down a horrible path, and that is relative to your people, a lack of ability and lack of motivation. So if your folks don't have the ability to get the job done, so that goes back to our talent gap and our skills gap and those types of things, and then motivation. Are we getting the best possible people in the door for our organization for the wage that we pay? Are we looking at our wages potentially in terms of as a payoff to pay a higher wage to get a better caliber person within our organization, or are we just accepting hiring somebody that maybe at a lower wage that turns over on us 5-6 times a month in one position, and we're spending thousands of dollars on hiring and training people, and we're in a tailspin that way. So We need to get better motivated people, and this is something we're going to really drill down on and explore today. So who are you hiring? You know, we're going to look at that, and we want to also look at fitting the people to the job. If you could have somebody that's a little bit higher caliber that can go in and make it happen at a job, and you pay them a few extra dollars an hour to get that person, to me that's money well spent, and we can show ROI on that. So how do we fix it? Again, these are general terms, kind of get us warmed up, and we're going to take a deeper dive here in a minute. But we really want to identify gaps, and we call this a DOS. This is something that we call dangers, opportunities, and strengths. Something you should do within your organization and look at from multiple fronts within your organization. So management, operations, HR, executive management, and operational employees, and look at what are your dangers. What are your personal dangers to you not being able to get your job done? And ask those questions. And you're going to get some surprising results because they're going to be very different. I was with an organization just yesterday that really hadn't done this exercise, and they were working off of the CEO's vision and the CEO's goals and ideals. But in the end, the whole rest of the organization had a bunch of other issues and problems that weren't being addressed. That organization is never going to bust out of their current condition if they don't get those things addressed. So you can have vision, but you have to have input from across the whole entire organization. So dangers, opportunities to change. What are these opportunities for us to make us better? And then what are the strengths that we have currently? And what are the resources we have currently to make those things happen? So I would do that in your organization, and we have formats and tools that we can provide to you to help get that done. And again, it's just amazing to see across the organization how very different the dangers are. But again, include all departments and prioritize where you want to go. Get everybody's buy-in. Again, this sounds easy, and we're kind of talking about it in that sense, but it's really not. You have to make sure you know what your strategy is, and then train people. You have to train them again, and then train them again, and hold them accountable. The one thing that jogs my mind when I'm talking about all of this goes back to Leonardo da Vinci, and this is somebody that I'm very interested in and do a lot of reading on. And he said there's three classes of people. And he said those that see when they're shown, and those that do not see. And what I take away from that quote is that we have to be cognizant and mindful of the folks within our organization that will never see. Will not see where we're headed and see what the point is of what we're trying to accomplish. And then we have to minimize or eliminate the numbers of those folks within our organization. Some folks might argue, well, those people need to be trained more. I respond by saying I've not seen it happen in very many cases. So it sounds harsh, but we need to focus on the people that can see and the people that see when they are shown. So interesting points. So let's talk about hiring a little bit. And going back to your want ad. And so we need to make sure we get the best possible people on our door. And this says here, part-time salesperson, well, it used to be full-time, I think they changed it to part-time, who won't quit after 2 months, who works hard and doesn't think she's doing me a favor by working here, who can take a joke and won't cry every day on the floor, inquire within. Now that was from the UK, but I thought that was pretty interesting as a way for people to enter that organization. Who wants to work for this organization? Very few people. And the people that do want to work for this organization are maybe desperate. And desperate people aren't going to help get you to where you need to be from a goals perspective. So look at that and take it for what it's worth. Or would you like something like this? This is actually from one of our ads here at HNI for people, and we're always constantly hiring, trying to find the best possible talent. But we want people to know we're flexible, innovative. We have benefits that rock. We're growing 73% in the last 4 years. We give you recognition. Early Fridays are a flexible schedule. We want thought leaders, people that are collaborative, are A players, we're family owned, etc. So You can do a place where you can do your best work. And these are all the awards that we've won. Again, this is not a commercial for us, but it's just to let you know you should be focusing in on your organization personally as to how you're going to let people know that you want the best. That you want the best people to come in and be part of your team. Because if you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, well, from a performance perspective, we're never going to bust out of that cycle. So something we really believe in, again, as far as from an improvement perspective, to improve our performance, we have to start at the very bottom as far as how we get our people. How are you going to know what's inside somebody's head when you hire them? This happens to be an x-ray of the skull, and there's a banana in there. And how do you know if somebody's bananas? You don't, unless you do some type of pre-job index. Okay, so it's a personal index. I think you must do these type of things within your organization. We do them here. We've had great success with identifying personal traits that we believe are best suited for the work that we have and the people that we want to have enter our organization. Can you imagine not knowing, bringing somebody into a job and they're exposing your organization to traits that you don't want them to have? It can get crazy. So let's take a look at the next slide, and this is really where some of the behaviors, again, come into play. So when we look at this, and you look at this chart, now there are A, B, C, and D traits in people, and everybody has a score based on what's in their mind in a simple 5-minute word association chart where they basically circle the words that describe them. So as an example, you have the A trait. This is someone that's going to be either innovative or accommodating. So when you're hiring somebody for a manufacturing role and an assembly role, would you want somebody that is either arrogant or entrepreneurial, domineering, and belligerent? Probably not. Or would you maybe want somebody that's confident, independent, competitive, a self-starter? Probably. So you want to find somebody in that area. Certainly you could have somebody that's humble and timid and meek and that type of thing, but that may not get you the results that you're looking for, and so on. If you look down onto the B trait, somebody that's friendly, outgoing, those type of things are a great add to a team from a manufacturing role. Now, if we're talking accounting or somebody that's really numbers driven, it may not necessarily matter, but someone that's withdrawn or secretive or is kind of just laying back in the weeds may not work. But if you don't do the survey of your people, you're not going to know this stuff in advance. So the other one I'll cover is the C trait, and here again, lethargic, very slow, unresponsive, placid, those type of things. If you have that, you may be having an issue. Versus somebody that's a little bit more tense. They're quick, they're driving, they're trying to get things done. Again, good trait to have in the C trait would be a little bit to the left. And then also on the D trait, you may want somebody that's accurate and careful, thorough, self-disciplined, dutiful, that type of thing, versus somebody that is sloppy, and has those traits. So if you look at this is huge intel. There's multiple services out there. This happens to be the one we use, but there's multiple services out there. I won't advertise any of them, but what I would suggest is that you take a look at profiling from a performance perspective your best people in a system like this. Then what you do is when you're hiring people, you see how close of a match you have to your very high-performing people. What you're doing is you're multiplying and replicating your best people versus hiring somebody who you have no idea. And right now, many of us and many organizations that we're starting to talk to have no idea. They don't know what they're getting until 2-3 months down the road, and then it just isn't working. How much money, time, energy, and training have you wasted? And I'm sure we can all think back to moments where that's happened to us. It's waste. It's part of your organization that you want to eliminate is waste. And so it's something we want to talk about and we want to be fully upfront with as something that you need to do to improve performance.
Chad, one of the things that that I've heard you kind of say about this before is that in the interview process, we tend to look for people that are like us, right, or very likable. But just because somebody is similar to you or is very outgoing doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the best fit for the job that you're recruiting for.
Very good point, Andrea. And I'll take just a moment to respond. And it is true. You make your first impression with somebody that you meet for the first time, whether you like them or not, in 5 seconds. Us humans are kind of an interesting bunch, but you do. You decide whether you like them or not in 5 seconds. And so now that you've decided you've liked somebody in an interview process and you want to hire somebody that you like, they may have some of those traits or qualities that may not necessarily fit with what you're looking for. As an example, they may have a sloppy trait or inaccurate trait, no attention to detail. And in a high-quality manufacturing environment, you really want to make sure you have the opposite of that. So how would you know? You liked them, you hired them, you brought them on, and now you're stuck with them. So again, getting at that root cause is something that we want to do. Now you've hired them, you're confident, now what? Well, people that fit the trait are going to be a little more accepting of some of the information that we're bringing based on that A trait that we talked about. If we're looking for somebody that was strong in that A trait, they're going to want to know what the expectations are, and then they're going to be held accountable for them. So we've got to make sure we have our expectations for our organization down, and we're going to talk about this later with glass walls and those things. So we need to basically let them know and hold them accountable. We also think we should have a scorecard system, and this is where it gets into performance management a little deeper, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But having that scorecard system to us is really where it's at and where it has to be. And then that should be posted, and people should really identify with being in a top percentage of the scorecard, and those on the bottom should try to find a way to elevate, and that's how you're going to improve your performance again. So we need to part ways with our bad actors. I can't tell you how many times, folks, that somebody came to me and said, you know, this person just had a very large accident, or this person just cost us $500,000 in a quality screw-up, or we lost a customer due to this one person's attitude, or what have you. And they always tell me, you know, we were thinking about getting rid of them about 6 months ago. And we had reason to, but, you know, we thought not, you know, this person probably can change, and we're just going to make it work, and that type of thing. And it might sound harsh. Again, I'm kind of an opinionated chap, but in most cases, in my experience, it just doesn't happen. So we need to backfill with good actors and move our organization forward. So we should come up with a set of critical behaviors for our organization, and people, certainly new generational folks coming into the workforce, are going to identify with a simpler, more of a scorecard, maybe pictogram type arrangement versus big, heavy-duty Excel spreadsheets, charts, those type of things. Some charts might work, but really, in my opinion, there should be a set of critical behaviors in your organization. So it's productivity, quality, safety. Some people put safety at the apex. Certainly attendance, presenteeism, wellness, and education. And if you round out these areas in your organization, you're going to be heading in a really, really good direction. Most organizations that I work with right now, quite honestly, spend most of their time and energy in the first two. And it certainly, you can't blame a lot of organizations, but they do it because they have a job to do. They have sales to make. They want to try to find a way to make that business survive. But what they don't realize is there's, like I said in my story at the beginning about Case, they're spending millions in these other issues like loss, waste, damaged products, returns. All of these things are not taking into consideration. So if you're not taking those into consideration in your organization right now, start jotting yourself some notes that you need to figure out what your costs are related to turnover, accidents, damaged products, returns. All those type of things are huge costs to an organization. So these are just some examples of negative performance behaviors that we see, and I just listed off some of them, but I won't go through them all. But if you take just a look through this list, and again, you can grab this deck later so you don't have to take too many notes, but if you're having a lot of these behaviors in your organization right now, we can show you where you can save quite a bit focusing in on just these behaviors. And there's many more beyond this. Typically what we do is conduct a workshop with supervisors and management whether it's collaborative online or in person. And what we do is we sit down and go through where you as an organization are spending money right now that you don't want to spend money in. It's a very simple approach, but it's amazing what you can walk out of an hour meeting and the list many times is endless, and the costs are astronomical. So something to think about and chew on a little bit. I think there's a lot of negative performance behaviors that we can improve upon, and we're going to show you how a way to focus on those and to improve those behaviors in minutes. So let's look at the performance review. We've done the ad a little bit. We talked about the ad and how we try to get people, how to improve our brand from a being an employer of choice perspective. We talked about bringing them on board and talking to them in an orientation process, that what the expectations are. Now we're working with them and we're bringing them to our new level of our organization. Now we want to look at a performance review, and this is where we want to make sure that people meet our expectations and exceed them. And sometimes in an organization, this is all you get. The person either needs improvement, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. Not good from a performance perspective, but some organizations have a simple process just like this. Some get really complex, and they use this. And this is just one page out of about 20 out of a performance review that we dug up from a customer. And I'll tell you what, it gets a little crazy because, number one, the supervisors are inundated with this mundane process. Is your performance review process at your facility heavy duty to the point where it's bringing down your performance because your leaders and your supervisors aren't able to do their job because they're too busy reviewing everybody? And in the end, we're a simplistic bunch as people. We want to get to the point where we're achieving simplicity and getting away from complexity. And your people don't want this either. They want to be reviewed on really some basic areas, and we're going to talk about those. Or does your process look like this? And you might be hitting the button right now. You're seeing nothing on your screen. That's what I mean. Sometimes your process is, you don't have one. And so you need to have some type of process that's going to not only let your people know where they sit in your organization from a performance perspective, but how they can also achieve their own personal gains or achieve better results by performing better. So it's incentive-based, carrot or the stick. So we need to think about trying something new. And we need to kind of target some of those critical behaviors that we have within our organization and identify them. I would say start with 5 or 6. And then there's an award system, a reward system that we've developed, again, that we're going to share with you. You can use it if you want. It's called Behavior Bank Account. I developed this program about 6 or 7 years ago. And it was a program driven out of the fact that I worked with so many organizations that have these group awards where they said, you know what, if we all do this, if we get our productivity to here, if we reduce our accidents to here, if we have no quality issues, by this day we're going to all get a pizza party. Well, I felt like that was kind of crap because what happened was somebody in the organization would screw up. Somebody would cause the organization not to meet the goal. When that happened, what happened? Well, everybody was ticked off at Bob because Bob jagged it up. Now we have a negative culture condition. And so people came to me and said, you know, we really want to be responsible for our own actions. Yeah, group awards, okay, we get it. We hit this mark. We all celebrate. That's awesome in a way. But ultimately, when it goes bad for everybody, even though one person only committed it. So this program that we're going to share with you really talks about personal performance improvements. And if they go a certain period of time without committing any of these unwanted behaviors, your performance is going to improve in your organization, and that person is going to share in a part of the gain. And your performance is going to continue to improve. We've done it a number of times with a number of organizations, and I'm going to show you some case studies as well as we go through there. So this is just a quick snapshot of a card that people would get for their pocket. And again, this just happens to be one organization's behavior bank account. And in their case, they were having a lot of accidents, and they were spending over $1 million a year in lost time, away from work, serious injuries. We had customer complaints. we had people showing up late. And what that did was it caused everything to be thrown off for the day. When people would show up late, they couldn't get their work done, and then other people were pressed harder, and it was causing problems culturally. And then we had a missed productivity goal. So what we did was we set up a pot of money. In this case, it was $500 for each employee, and you could use 200, you can use 100, you can use whatever fits your budget by your people. And what you do is basically if somebody commits one of these errors, if you will, or behaviors, they get a reduction. Now, they're not out of the game. They can do one thing wrong, and they're still in the game. But now they're focusing in on the critical behaviors that you've identified with them to make them better, to make your organization better. It's simple, but it works. So then, at the end of the year, you basically say, okay, here are the folks in the bottom 25th percentile that have gotten 0. They've committed so many bad behaviors that they're out of the game. And they should be, because they should be participating in the cost of these errors. Okay? So now that's an instant performance review. You know your bottom 25. Now we have the rest. We have the middle 50 and we have the upper 25. Now the upper 25, those folks haven't committed any errors. They're your A players. We want to replicate those people. So we profile them back to our profile. Now we've identified our best players from a behavioral perspective. We realize what their profile looks like, and then we score percentage-wise our new employees coming on board against our best performers. That's how we build performance in an organization. We don't focus on parts per hour. We don't focus on these other things right away. We focus on getting the best people in the door. So just a quick snapshot on that. It's not pretty, I apologize, but that's just kind of an example. So this is kind of the model, again, looking at an organization. This one happens to be focused on safety, quality, delivery, cost, and morale. And they're looking at incidents per year, conditions per 100 and a quality level, delivery schedule, right? Sales to expense ratio and absenteeism. So they view those as where their biggest ROI could come from and how to address those. And so people are held accountable to that. And it's, again, very simple. This is one page. I can understand this as an employee. If I'm responsible for something, I can keep this with me. I can post it. I can refer back to it. I can't look through a huge policy of 40 pages and understand it all, and you can't hold me accountable for it. You can try, but it's not going to work. We're going to waste a lot of time and energy. So simplicity in our model, okay? This is another one that we've seen out there. Now we're getting a little more complex, but this is something where we see an organization uses what we call a glass wall. So by department, you post up one or more of these charts in terms of the areas that you want to improve. So people then are held accountable as a group, and then certainly individually as well, going back to the behavior bank account. But let's just take safety as an example. Safety is something that people a lot of times don't address because it's just safety. That's Bob's responsibility. He's the safety director. That's not true. Safety ultimately is on everybody, and as also on the individual. If your people at your facilities right now don't realize that nobody else is looking out for their safety more than them, you're in trouble. It's not the safety director. They guide. It's not the HR person. They help guide. But each individual person, we talk about this, we do group meetings with all employees and our customers quite often, and we tell them, you have to understand that nobody's looking out for your safety more than you. We can give you training. We can give you guarded machinery. We can give you all that, but in the end, it's on you. So what this chart does, it shows us which day, if we had an incident, and then the days that we didn't. Obviously, we want to create green crosses. Same thing with quality. Again, working our way around. Some of you may be using some things like this, but people can visually on a daily basis come in, look at it, understand what happened. There can be discussion and transparency around what happened, and then people can work en masse to avoid having these problems. And as you go by day, looking forward, your hope is that you see very little red on the charts that you selected. So again, quality, delivery, cost, inventory, productivity, and environment. Certainly some of you are doing Lean or 5S or something like that where you want to have environmental in there. But again, these are ways, and quite a few of our customers quite honestly use these, but they have to be kept up. The biggest danger here is you don't have a champion. You don't have somebody within your organization that takes responsibility and is accountable to this process, and there may be multiple people. But you really want to make sure that it gets updated, because what happens, like anything else, it's kind of like that old safety poster where it said, hey, we've gone 401 days since a lost time accident. Well, what happens a lot of times is the person that is doing it stops doing it or leaves the company. And so when you ask the question, oh yeah, we don't pay any attention to that. That was like 3 years ago, and the chalk is still on there. You know, and it becomes kind of a frustrating thing for people. It's a negative culture builder to not focus in and stay focused on these things. So what's measured does get done, but we need to be really accountable to the process. And I like this idea. I think this is good visually to open up the discussion for transparency. So here are some real-world examples that we've had. Again, I won't read these all to you, but really when we're talking about all of this, getting to the success that we want and improving our performance is to drive out those negative behaviors, things that are costing us money, like we talked about. And a number of our customers have used this, and these are just some examples here. One of them really that stands out is the second bullet point, and this is an organization that has a lot of warehousing, docks, a lot of forklifts, a lot of employees, and basically they ran with this program for about a year, and they came up with about 60% reduction in tracked errors in their operation. It came out to very, very large savings. Again, these savings that you're seeing here are direct costs. They don't take into consideration the indirect costs, and in many cases, indirect costs that are not necessarily tracked directly, can equate to 1 or 2 times that amount. So something to really think about, a lot of success. Quick story here relating back to these behaviors. An organization that we work with happens to, they're a concrete company, and all their people were, a lot of people, about 100, drive cement trucks. And when they drive the cement trucks to the job site, they are in a hurry sometimes, and they knock over trees and bushes and mailboxes, and so they're delivering a $300 or $400 load of concrete, and in the meantime, they're knocking over a $400 ornamental tree and a $300 mailbox. So the organization is going backwards, and they asked us for help. And we went in and put the program into play, kicked it off, talked to their people about it, and said, this stuff's important, and we have top management support. CEO talked about it, managers talked about it, put the program in place. They went an entire year, again, going from a spend, a very large spend, to nothing. Zero. They had zero. Now, they had other problems in other areas, but from this property damage perspective, as this productivity indicator, they had zero issues with that. They saved a lot of money. So we go back to the meeting. We asked the people, what changed? The people said, we didn't know it was important. We thought it was more important to get the stuff there, get it off the truck, get going, and get another load. That was the original discussion that was given to us when we were hired. Well, that had changed, but nobody told the people. So again, it gets back to behaviors and holding people accountable and educating them. So these are just, again, some examples of where we think this can go. So you got to improve your chances for success when you do any of these things, and you have to look at how you're going to get there. And really what you have to have is somebody driving it on site. You have to have some help possibly from an outsider to come up with the behaviors, figure out where you need to head, what makes sense, do some training and that, but you have to have somebody on a regular basis on site driving this, as in anything else that you do, right? So also you need to let people know this is a good thing. Hey, you have a chance to capitalize. You have a chance to make a bonus based on doing the right thing. And some people say, well, you shouldn't bonus people for what they're supposed to do. Well, this, in a sense, is helping them focus in on what's really important. And we have customers that use $2,500 and still show ROI because they've incorporated this model into all of their bonus programs. So they've taken away the dollars from other bonus programs, combined them into one, and then used that dollar amount as the driver, and they've had awesome success with it. So you should post the results, because when you see results, people can understand where they're at. If you don't want to put names on there, assign everybody a number so that only the individual can see that's them. And nobody wants to be on the bottom. If the people that do want to be on the bottom and they're happy to be there, that should tell you something. You need to, again, part ways with those individuals to improve your performance. So You have to teach your people to own this performance. And again, you should teach them about your business. Show them that what's wasteful and what's not acceptable. Give them a little bit of raise or a perk or a benefit around doing the right thing. Those that do the right thing should make more. How many of you have people in your organization that all make the same amount and they're all different on the productivity, quality, safety, all things that we discussed? They're different on that spectrum, but you're paying them the same. That's wrong. We need to have people appreciated, the ones that are top performers, for the work that they do, and everybody else should know about it. That's how you're going to drive performance. Okay. So teach them, hey, we have these problems. Here's what it cost us. Do you guys realize? And equate it into sales. Take your profit margin and your sales and come up with what it takes for this error in sales to equate to a win. And so it gives back to even. And we do this a lot in workshops where we show people, hey, do you understand that this recall that we had equated to about $4 million in net profit? And so we have an opportunity here where we actually have to sell $20 million worth of stuff in order to make up for this waste. And people understand, oh, wow, I didn't understand it that way. Well, that's what it takes. That's part of running the business. So when people understand that, they maybe pay closer attention to what really matters. Okay? So in summary, if you don't change something, nothing's going to change. And things need attention, and you have to accomplish something. And I talked about Da Vinci earlier, and again, these things always come back to my mind. But I really do think that when you look at behaviors, and one of the statements that he said quite a bit, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember exactly, but it said something like, it had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely or don't sit back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things. So I might have butchered that a little bit, but what it really means is you actually went out and did something. You actually went out and made something happen versus kind of sitting back and waiting. So we have to put focus, like we said earlier, into these areas where we spend dollars and track them. We have to share info with everybody, what's important. Okay? So we need to make a big deal out of this. This stuff's important. This is where it's going to head. We could sit back and talk about time studies and making sure that we're getting X product out the door and we're going to have a busy season and all that stuff. But the bottom line is those things we're going to do anyway, but we need to do things new and different. We need to figure out where we're taking this thing for the next generation. We're going to have to understand that the people coming in, we can't train them the same way we train the people that have been here for 30 years. They learn differently. They don't understand our message if it's 30 years old. They have to understand the message and how they're held accountable and what they're held accountable to, and we need to make sure we get the best ones in the door. But you have to look at your resistors in your organization, and you have to take action on them. If you want to train them and try to convert them, more power to you. Some people you're not going to be able to reach. I know that's harsh. But some of this stuff gets back to what I refer to as starting a revolution. You have to, in your organization, start a revolution. You have to go out and make things happen for you. Many times, an organization needs somebody that's going to be a little weird or a little different, or somebody that's going to take a piece of knowledge like you're getting here today and come up with a crazy idea, and you know what, it just might work. You know what, it might take some time. It might take some convincing. But any revolution that's ever happened from the dawn of history until now has taken hard work, attention, time, and skill. So we're really interested in hearing your thoughts and ideas related to what we're talking about today. It's a different approach to looking at managing performance, something that maybe you've heard bits and pieces of along the way, but we really think you have to start with the hiring, get the best people, figure out how you're going to train them properly, what you're going to hold them accountable for, how you're going to reward them for what you're doing to reduce or eliminate those unwanted behaviors. That's how you're going to start a revolution. So now, I'm going to open it up for questions if anybody has any. Andrea's standing by. We're more than happy to talk here for a few minutes. And
Yeah, so again, just as a reminder, you can ask questions by typing them into your chat window in GoToMeeting. You can also tweet at us on Twitter. So a couple questions coming in here, Chad. Towards the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that there are two kinds of wicked problems when it comes to people, either lack of ability or lack of motivation.
Okay.
Which in your eyes is harder to fix?
The motivation part to me is the hardest part, because it's something that you're going to find in the core behavioral aspect that we talked about in the cultural index, finding out what's inside the person. Remember the slide going back to the banana in the brain being bananas? We all are to some degree, and I'm not standing in front of you today saying that I'm not a little bit crazy myself. But what you need to identify in your organization is somebody that is a fit, and that's motivated, that wants to do a good job. And we're doing that here at HNI. There's a thing on that cultural index that we use called the energy units. And the energy units is a scale. You get this also in your report. It's a scale of 0 to, what is it, Andrea, 70?
I think it's 70, yeah.
0 to 70, let's say, and it's a numerical scale. 0 meaning you have no energy units, 70 meaning you have the most. And energy units, it's not the type of energy that you get up and run a marathon type of energy. It's mental energy. It's the kind of energy that at the end of the day you have gas left in the tank. If you're a 70 and at the end of the day, at lunchtime, you're a 0. And so there's different types of people out there. So long answer to a great question. To me, somebody that's motivated, you need to identify that in the hiring process. Even in your existing staff, if they aren't motivated, there isn't a heck of a lot, in my opinion, that's going to motivate them to get you where you need to go in your organization. Thank you.
Okay, here's a question about incentive programs. What are the right amounts to inspire people to change behavior? Do you recommend kind of small chunked up incentives or kind of a big bonus amount?
I do. That's a great question. Some people are really against monetary incentives, and there's been a lot of study and articles out there, and it's like anything else. Everybody has an opinion on it. I'm not saying mine is the best, but some people say you shouldn't incentivize folks with money. It should be a sweatshirt or a T-shirt or something that they can touch. You know, a dinner or money goes away, and then it's gone forever, and they have nothing to remember it, versus a little statue on their desk reminds them every day. And I kind of get some of that, but you know, if people get a really nice pen, they'll hang on to it for a long time. That's great. But in the end, you have to look at the core reason for why we work. Maybe why you work when you're here today, you have a different reason. But if you ask your rank and file at the site why they work, 95% of the time they're going to say, "What, Andrea? Why do people work?"
They want to make a living and take some money home to their family.
Yeah, they want to make money. So they want to make sure that they have the cash. And so to me, a meaningful amount, and again, it's going to have to be budgetary driven in your organization, but we can figure out a way where we can show ROI. And if you have leadership in your organization and management that likes change, and you can show them how this change could equate to improved performance and reduce costs, we can show a lot of times we're $300, $400, $500 per employee amount. It might seem like a lot, but we can show where that we can return investment on that. So I would say it should be substantial. It should be paid once a year because what you want is to be a kind of a larger hit for somebody. Like I said, we have a customer that does $2,500 and they still see ROI, but you have to look at what's best for you. But it should be a meaningful amount, and then incorporate this awards meeting as a group meeting. And not that it's a shaming meeting, but it is, you're allowing, say you do $500. First you call up your $100 winners, then you call up your $200 winners, and so on up until the $500 winners, and then you have a big celebration. What's going to happen is, one of our customers did this at a holiday party with the spouses, and you could see the spouses hitting the people that didn't get any awards because they were upset. They're like, hey, everybody else can do this, you big girl, me, why can't you? And so I would say get as much energized activity as you can out of it and have some fun with it.
Chad, who do you see typically managing the whole performance management process in manufacturing organizations? Is it HR? Is it safety? A combination of the two?
Yeah, I think you're best off, great question, thank you. I think you're best off having a champion, somebody that's ultimately responsible for it, but that champion, whoever that may be, it could be HR, it could be operations, somebody that has the capability of not only communicating what we're doing, but also being able to spend the proper amount of time and care to this, somebody that's going to take this on as one of their job assignments and be held accountable for it, even in their own review, because this is how serious this stuff is. So I would say I've seen it done in many cases. I've seen in smaller companies, I've seen the CEO do it with some assistance. I have seen HR do it. I've seen operations management, production management, and VPs, safety people. So not that I'm weaseling out on the answer, but I think it can be the person. It shouldn't be a specific person. It should be the person that can spend the time and attention to make sure that it gets done right and that it gets driven through. I have a customer right now where they have a little bit of instability. They have a very hard-charging production person who's great, can get things done. You can rely on this person. She's awesome. And then they have somebody who is in HR who is great as well, but just doesn't seem to get the details done, and that hurts the process. So you have to think about it from that perspective. Who's going to get the details done and make it happen?
Chad, you talked a little bit about how the change in some of our generational preferences is kind of changing the game for performance management. What are some of the differences that you see when it comes to training and managing performance for millennials?
Oh, we've seen a lot. Andrea and I have done together whole workshops on this, and we're going to talk about getting another one going here shortly. But really, there's a big difference because in the way we've learned. You have to look at folks like me, who I'm in my 40s. I didn't grow up with a computer at my side, at my bedside, and waking me up all night and communicating with people on a 24/7 basis all around the world. I grew up with a pen and a piece of paper and a test and reading a book. And quite honestly, that's the way most organizations do their training right now, if they do training. And it's very archaic. And when you hire somebody, if you want to be a sexy, excuse the pun, employer, and you want to bring in people that are going to be your next generation and what your company is going to look like in the future, you're going to have to appeal to them. And so when you appeal to them by having a different style of training. Maybe the training that you use, we have a system that is a LMS, so people can take their training from home anywhere in the world on their phones. And we give this system to our customers where they can do HR, safety, productivity, workplace violence, harassment, whatever. And people want to do it that way because they don't necessarily want to do it at work. They'll do it on their own time. And when they're maybe watching TV or something. And so there's a different way to do things. And so you have to remember the big difference is technology. And the millennials don't want to sit necessarily or read something or sit in a room and be taught and then write down a test in a group. They may want to do it in a different way. And so when you hire somebody, you tell them you have these great new tools and you have an intranet and you're communicating with your people, you're transparent, you're showing them all the great things that you do, and you have a hip vibe to you, you're going to get those people. If you look like an organization that I was at last week, where it was the walnut offices that had the pictures of the founders from 1901, which is great for your identity and brand, but also it can hurt you as well because that doesn't look like a modern organization to people. Even your furniture. We're looking at our furniture right now at HNI, and we have some cool stuff, but we're going to get really crazy. And we're going to look at some things that have some pretty wild and obscene colors and things that are just that next level. So we're trying things, and we're trying to be that organization where we look like we're starting a revolution, because that's how you should look. So long answer, sorry.
Chad, there's been a lot of commentary about millennials kind of getting a trophy just for showing up and constantly being rewarded and recognized.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how that translates to the workplace and maybe how rewards should be structured for this type of population?
Yeah, and that's a great point, Andrea. Real quick story, my daughter is 14, and she plays on some different sports teams, and namely a soccer team, and all the way up through her life, since she's been 5, she's played in soccer matches and tournaments and things. no matter where she finished, she always got a medal. And her room, she's still got them all to this day, her room is covered in medals. Now, some of them might say 16th place on them. I think I brought one into work the other day to show everybody that said 23rd place, which I thought was hilarious. But so that's how she grew up. And that's, I don't necessarily like it or agree with it, but there's nothing I can do to change it. And so the people coming on board into your organizations now need to have some regular acknowledgement. And not necessarily from a monetary perspective, but here with this, the idea of this behavior bank account, again, there's other ways to do it. What you're getting is instant feedback on whether they're doing good or bad. You can have a monthly review or posting of the behaviors that we're looking for, and you can congratulate the top 50% with whatever, a t-shirt, a hat, etc. You can drive good behaviors by getting people and talking to the millennials on a regular basis about what they're doing and what they can do to change. And if they want to change, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. But we need to at least identify it. So I think that's a great point, is having some kind of regular approach to that. But really starts with getting the best people in the door at the very beginning. I can tell you stories about our own organization real quick. When we have people that we bring in, you can tell. When they score pretty well on the test and they hit the behaviors that we're looking for, you can just tell when you look at them some of the traits that they bring versus ones that don't.
Okay, Chad, you touched on this a little bit in your last answer, but how are you seeing companies differentiate themselves in order to attract the best talent in the marketplace? Obviously, in manufacturing, talent is a scarce resource. So
yeah.
how are companies successfully standing out?
That's a good point. Great question. I've got a number of manufacturing customers that are using high schools as kind of the fountain of candidates, where they're going in and talking with, these happen to be organizations that are in heavy manufacturing and also technical manufacturing. They're going in and having discussions with leaders, with the school teachers. They're developing relationships with those people because what they're getting from those conversations, and they make a little investment in time, but what they're getting is, who are the people in your class that seem to kind of be interested in this skill or trade or experience, and who maybe seems like they're not going to school? Can you give us some names? And they'll actually send mailings to those people. So it's a little bit of more of an aggressive recruiting approach, as an example. But you're starting to see this more and more. Quad Graphics, again, large organization, sends out mailings to people from specific schools where they know they're getting a good kind of pre-manufacturing training and experience within their school. And they're kind of, even though it's more of a broad brush, they're saying, hey, we know you're graduating. We want you. Here's what we have. Here's an informational session about who we are. Come and see us. So the organizations that are doing well in this right now are not just sitting back hoping. They're actually making things happen by going out and finding candidates and using, even if it's internship programs or utilizing trade and tech programs, that type of thing. They're going out and finding the best people. Many organizations, even at 300-400 person level, are hiring recruiters. So that's another example. I could talk about this as a whole other workshop and webinar here. It was great topic, great question.
Okay, well, it looks like we're at about 11:01, so that's all the time that we have for today. Our contact information is on the screen if you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to reach out with. Thank you guys all for attending today. We'll be sending you an email with the recording and the slide deck.
We'd love to engage with you. If you have ideas, you want to kick around, you want to talk, we'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one session with you and dive a little deeper into your organization, get to know you a little better. Give us a shout, and look forward to working with you. Thanks, everybody.